Hello to everyone and welcome to Astrodesign. I prepared a short course for you to know better yourself and the people around you based on human design. This series of videos will show you the basics of human design, which is a tool for mapping the human specification. It's the knowledge of differentiation of our mechanics between each person, and gaining this knowledge is like receiving and operating instructions for the most important vehicle in the whole universe, for our body. This knowledge is about the mechanics, as I said, and how to achieve the best things for you, how to manifest yourself and achieve better results in any area by proper control of our body, without, of course, harming it. A few important things before I dig into the short video of this course. The first, each map is unique and there are differences both in the map itself and in the conditionings that we receive as children. So even twins have different conditioning. Second, there is nothing bad or good in this knowledge. This is what it is. Bad or good, it's only categories of our mind. While human design, it's only about the mechanics. Third, human design isn't perfect, and it has its flaws and shortcomings. There is no knowledge system in the whole world that is perfect, so don't take it for granted. Experience with it and understand for yourself through questioning, inquiry, and testing what is right for you. And the last thing, there will be things that I will tell you according to my own investigations, which, by the way, is around 7 years. So not everything will be 100% compatible with the books or what a person named Trauer who passed on about this knowledge, so take it into account. This video I'm going to talk about authority. Authority is the inner authority that we were born with and on which we can always rely in decision-making processes. Most people in the world are unaware of their inner ability to make decisions on their own. Many also do not want to take responsibility for it because they are afraid that they will have to bear the negative consequences regarding their decisions. And besides, from childhood, we are taught to listen to our parents, then to our kindergarten teacher, to any authority figures later in life, and the government. So no one really teaches us how to listen to ourselves. Human design divides authority into two main types: external authority and internal. External is our thoughts, the mind, and what happens outside of us, and internally is what is built within us and together with the type strategy that constitutes the process of our decision making. If we learn to trust our inner authority, we will be able to make decisions that are right for us, for our self-realization, and even if they are not so good or lead to some kind of failure, still so it should be. Failure is the greatest success board that can be in life, so there is nothing to be afraid of. In total, we have 7 different inner authorities. The first is around 52.9% in the population, and it is an emotional authority related to the definition of solar plexus, SP. So it says that these people have the solar plexus, the emotional motor, defined in their map from birth. The second authority is about 30.9% in the world, and it's called Sacral Authority. Only generators have this kind of authority, but they don't have defined emotional emotional center in their map. The third authority is 8.9%. It can be in the maps of manifestors or projectors. It is a splenic authority. It happens when there is no definition of sacral or solar plexus, and the spleen is defined. The fourth authority is 1.5%. Of course, also with manifestors and projectors, without definition in the emotional center or the spleen or the sacral, but they have defined ego. So it's called Ego Authority. The fifth authority called the G, or self-authority. This happens around 2.3% of the population, only with the projectors that have a defined G center in their map, but have no definition in the emotional center, spleen, and ego, so they are not defined. The sixth authority called mental, or no inner authority. It occurs for about 2.3%, and it happens only with projectors. They have defined ajna and head and doesn't have other definition in their map regarding centers, of course. And the seventh authority is 1.2 approximately percentage in the population, and it is called moon authority. It occurs only with reflectors. They have to make decisions after at least one cycle of the moon, which is about 28, 29 days each cycle. In human design, there is a hierarchy of authorities. This means that if you have a defined emotional center, this will be your authority, because this is the first and most important authority of all. So even if you have the ego defined or the spleen, doesn't matter. As long as you have the solar plexus defined, it will be your inner authority. Another example, if you have a defined sacral and a defined spleen, you will have a sacral authority because it has a more valuable and more strong authority, inner authority on your body. So how the authority work and what contributes to decision making? First of all, emotional authority. It moves in waves. Sometimes there is a high wave and there is a feeling of high and endless joy, but sometimes the wave crashes and goes down, and we have a feeling of despair and down feelings. Because of the waves, every spontaneous decision that takes place at a certain wave point, and is therefore painted in the coloring of this point in the wave. In order to avoid making the wrong decisions in the heat of the moment, it is important for these people to let every important decision be some kind of brewed or digested within the body over time. How long, you may ask? Well, every person has their own emotional waves, and only by tracking the waves and paying attention to them, you will know how your wave works. Everyone is unique. I will read you now a post that I wrote on Facebook about the emotional authority and waves. So emotions are a very powerful engine in our bodies. It is very influential on our behavior. It pushes us to act on it, and it colors the interpretation of our reality. Each point in time is colored in the emotional hue depending on the location of our emotional wave. For example, someone at a low point in one of the following graphs may feel despair, hopeless, and nervous, very pissed off even. We have three main types of waves. We have the collective, the abstract waves. In this category, we have the 3041 channel or the 30 gate, and we have the 3635 channel, the 36 gate. The wave is related to desire and all the emotional nuances with it, as well as sexual desires or desires of any kind. The high wave here is full of expectations, and the low, the opposite, disappointment, failure to fulfill the expectation. We have individual waves, which are the 39 gate and the 22. They are the fastest, so much so that on the one hand for such people, it is difficult to notice and understand whether they are on a high or a low wave. On the other hand, they are perceived as the least emotional. These waves change at record speeds. These waves are associated with passion and mood swings, and sometimes even problems with digesting and eating habits. And we have the tribal waves, which are the 49, the 6, and the 37 gates. They are the slowest, ascending slowly and then crashing. They are related to needs, to physical contact and resources. And I want to give you a tip for a relationship with them. The right physical contact can calm them down. In the low wave, the crash and hopelessness is very high and can exist once in a long time. But when it happens, be careful. This is the cruelest and the harshest wave. Conclusion for us, the emotional ones. I advise you to learn about your waves. They are your natural biochemistry, and you should not run away from it through alcohol, smoking, sex, or other harmful addictions. It won't help and won't do you any good. It's better that you do something that brings you satisfaction when you are in a low wave with another emotional person or alone. Let's move on to Sacral Authority. I talked about this in a previous video regarding types. I will mention briefly that anyone who does not have an emotional center defined and is a generator, of course, it is important to learn to listen to sounds or energetic responses that comes from the sacral. In order to facilitate decision-making processes for a classic generator, it will help to find someone who will ask you closed questions about the decision. It drives your sacral to react. For manifesting generators, it is also important to get as much information as possible and closed questions. The third authority is the splenic. It is the fastest voice in our body. It speaks here and now and in some kind of sensational waves or attunement to our body. It's the intuition, a very, very strong gut feeling that most of all speaks about what not to do. The spleen is our immune system and health survivor. Hence, it is intended as a warning system against something or someone that could harm the body. The spleen speaks very faintly, and in the background noises of our mind, it is very hard to hear it. Therefore, it requires a lot of practice. It also depends on which channel connects your spleen and where. For example, in the taste stream, the channels 1858 and 4816, we also have a physical taste that can taste something, can understand that isn't unhealthy, and some kind of sensing taste, intuition regarding which process or person is logical or healthy and the opposite. Another example, the gate 44 and the channel 4426 can smell something wrong. The fourth authority is the ego authority. Decisions is based on the feeling of inner value. Truth is related to the direction of the heart, following our own desires. It's important to be selfish here and ask ourselves, what do I want? What is it for me? Two types of ego authority expressed. The connection of the ego center with the center of the throat is the first, and it happens only with manifestors. They should use their personal desire to decide what to express and what to leverage in reality. And the second one is the Ego Projected Projector. It's the connection of the ego center to the G center. Notice the statement of your I, your identity, is directly related to self-worth and is important to base decisions on it. Those who do not value your identity or try to suppress who you are, you should stay away from them. In addition, you have an inner ability to decide whether the project or the person is worth it. The fifth authority, called the G center or the self-projected projectors. There is an inner feeling whether you are in the right direction or not. Is what is offered to you, is the invitation suitable for who you are, to your identity, to your direction. Here it is important to cleanse yourself of preconditioning so that the identity will really be your own and not of someone who forced it on you. In addition, it is important to speak out about the decisions so that through the sound of your voice, you will be able to understand whether it is right for you or not. You should make a decision when you are alone, because environmental energies can be very conditioning for you, and you can make decisions that does not fit your identity. The sixth authority, called mental, it occurs only with projectors. They have no internal authority. It means that they doesn't have other authority defined centers in their map, but that does not mean that there is no way to make decisions by their own. For them, it's important to speak aloud the deliberation and the issue of decision making with a person who will not give you advice, but will only listen and not and at most ask direct question, but not interfere in your decision making. The answers are always there within you, but not in the mental pen. Only inputting the mental energy out can help you decide. It can be done even through self-recording and then listening to it. And the last authority, the moon authority. I also talked about it regarding reflectors in the previous video. So they should wait a full moon cycle before making an important decision. they should not rush. I will end this video with my personal experience and the results of the investigation I have done in my life. But before, is it true to treat only one organ in your body and ignore that you have more dominant organs? Quite a few people have a combination of several authorities on the map. So for them, it means listening only to the highest authority in the hierarchy will do good for them. I myself have three defined authorities: the solar plexus, spleen, and the ego. In my experience, any authority on the map should be listened to, but it is essential to understand when and how to separate the voices of the authorities, and especially from the voice of the mind, and learn when to listen to each. From my experience, every time in my life I did not listen to my spleen, I was screwed. These are mainly regarding people who my spleen immediately recognize if they have recognized me or are doesn't good for me, about new jobs, travel, or studies. And the most important thing is about nutrition and health issues. It is very important here because the spleen is our immune system. So it always informs what not to eat and where not to go to avoid physical harm. A lot of things the spleen warns me about, and if there was no listening to his fast and quiet voice, too bad. My emotional center is good for final decisions, which conforms my spleen, especially in situations where I do not have a warning from the spleen, and then everything is open, and it is better for me to act according to the emotional center, which must conform twice before I decide, and to take my time as long as I need it. But if the spleen gives me a warning that for me, because of the connection to the root center, it manifests as a physical pressure or pain in the shoulders, in the neck, or some kind of bad gut feeling. And the second time, I had no warning from the spleen, and I decided, I will go for it. It was a mistake. The spleen is always right. Of course, as an emotional being, the time to think about it can cause the mind to interfere, and it can influence the decisions that does not necessarily come from the emotional pen. Still, the spleen is always right, so especially when it says no. So about the ego, for me, is basically an economic value worth appreciation barometer. So it is especially important to me in matters of work support, cost benefit, value checking of purchases, and that kind of stuff. Very important to listen to him on these issues because he is very good at appreciating people and the material world. So for me personally, just listening to emotions, it is inaccurate and not true in every situation. How do the authority fit in your life? Feel free to answer in the comments below. Until the next video, I wish you all good luck and take care. Bye-bye.